To the outside world, Vanessa Tran had mastered life. At 44, she was a powerhouse attorney with her own nameplate at a sleek law firm in downtown Chicago. Her days were spent negotiating multi-million-dollar contracts, defending clients in corporate courtrooms, and mentoring young associates who aspired to follow her path. She wore tailored suits, spoke with conviction, and walked like someone who knew exactly where she was going. But behind her confident exterior, Vanessa was quietly unraveling. Every morning, she brewed her coffee before dawn, stared at her reflection in the stainless steel kettle, and took a deep breath to brace for the day. Her mornings were a flurry of quiet rituals: breakfast for her daughter Emma, reviewing case files, checking international updates to stay in sync with her husband Alec, who was working in Seoul for a year-long tech contract. Their daily video calls had become a lifeline. Emma, their 15-year-old, was the anchor of her world. A quiet, intuitive girl with a gift for sketching and a love for indie music, Emma reminded Vanessa of everything good in her life. Still, Vanessa carried a weight no one could see. It didn't come from her job, or her marriage, or even parenting a teenager alone. It came from her past, and the people who refused to let her grow beyond it. Her mother, Diane, and younger brother, Jason, were the secret gravity pulling at her. When Vanessa's father died suddenly 5 years ago, it exposed more than grief. It revealed a house of financial cards Diane had built through decades of borrowed image and superficial prestige. There were no savings, no pension, only debt and denial. Diane's luxury apartment in Lakeview was weeks away from repossession, and Jason, well, Jason had always struggled. He was 32, a single dad raising a 7-year-old son named Aiden, scraping by on part-time delivery jobs, never quite finding his footing. Vanessa had always played the role of rescuer. First emotionally, then financially. And now, every single month, Vanessa sent $1,300 to her mother to cover rent, groceries, and utilities. Another $700 went to Jason to help with Aiden's school, meals, and basic necessities. $2,000. Every 30 days. Without fail. No one in her office knew. Not even her closest friend, Evelyn, a fellow partner at the firm. Vanessa feared what they'd think. That she was enabling. That she was being used. That she wasn't as in control as she looked. Because lately, that's exactly how she felt. In the beginning, the help had felt right. Necessary. Even fulfilling. "I have the means," Vanessa would tell Alec, when he raised an eyebrow at the monthly deductions. Their family. But over time, the tone shifted. Gratitude turned to expectation. Kindness became obligation. If she sent the money a day late, Diane would call 3 times and leave a voicemail layered in passive-aggressive guilt. "I know you're busy with your big job, but the electric bill doesn't wait, Vanessa." Jason, once apologetic, now texted casually with requests like, "Aiden needs new shoes. You got us?" "No please. No thank you." Just assumption. The real breaking point, though, wasn't the money, it was the contradiction. Vanessa began noticing details she couldn't unsee. Diane posting brunch selfies at expensive cafes, wearing fresh manicures and new scarves. Jason tagging himself at concerts and day spas. Aiden flashing new sneakers on his birthday, while Vanessa was hesitating to upgrade Emma's aging tablet for schoolwork. Her frustration built quietly. Like steam in a closed pot. "I feel like I'm funding everyone's lifestyle except my own daughter's," she confessed to Alec on a video call one evening. He looked at her, tired but sincere. "You are, V," he said gently. "And one day it's going to crush you." But she still couldn't stop. Not because they needed her. But because she didn't know how to say no without guilt devouring her. Because when you grow up being told that love is measured by sacrifice, setting boundaries feels like betrayal. One chilly Thursday morning in March, Vanessa found herself standing in the kitchen, Emma's breakfast on the table, her own nerves on edge. She had a deposition later that afternoon, an important one. Alec had reminded her to breathe, Emma had kissed her cheek on the way out the door, and her assistant was already blowing up her phone. But the moment she saw Diane's name flash across the screen, again, her stomach sank. The message read: Vanessa. Call me immediately. Jason needs help with Aiden's school trip. They need $500 by noon. I know you've got it. No hello. No how are you. Just need. Demand. Vanessa stared at the message as if it might change. 3 minutes later, another one came. I don't understand how you can spend money on art school for Emma but hesitate to help your own nephew. She doesn't need private school. She's already spoiled. Vanessa's chest burned. She felt something uncoil inside her. Something long dormant. By the time the third message came in. You're selfish. You think your job makes you better than us. Don't forget who raised you. Vanessa was already dialing. Her voice was steady when Diane picked up. Mom, she said. This has to stop. Diane didn't miss a beat. So now you're choosing strangers over family? You're choosing your daughter's luxury over Aiden's education? Vanessa exhaled through her nose. I've already sent $2,000 this month. And for 3 years, I've carried both you and Jason without fail. I love you, but I'm not your bank. A pause. Then venom. You always thought you were too good for us. Your suits, your fancy degrees. You look down on your own mother. No, Vanessa said, softly but firmly. But I do know my worth now. And I won't pay to keep people in my life who only value me for what I can give them. Before Diane could respond, Vanessa ended the call. Her hands were shaking. But not from fear. From release. She didn't know that moment would be the beginning of something much darker. That for the first time in her life, her mother wouldn't just try to guilt her. She'd try to hurt her. And she'd go through the one person Vanessa loved more than anything, Emma. The next morning, Vanessa was already awake before her alarm. Her mind was still spinning from the previous day's confrontation. She had finally done it, she'd drawn the line, said the words that had been simmering inside her for years. No more money. No more guilt. No more being emotionally manipulated by the very people who were supposed to love her. But as she poured coffee into her travel mug, she couldn't shake the unease. Emma sat at the kitchen island, scribbling a few final notes into her literature journal. Her headphones rested around her neck, and a faint indie melody drifted out. She looked so calm, so normal. Vanessa studied her for a moment longer than usual, feeling the soft pang of maternal instinct tap against her ribs. "You'll be okay at Grandma's for a couple days?" she asked, sliding a plate of toast across the counter. Emma hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough to raise a red flag. Then she smiled, too quickly. "Yeah, it's only 2 nights. I'll just do my homework and stay out of the way." Vanessa frowned. "If anything feels off, anything at all, you call me immediately, okay?" "I will," Emma said quietly. Vanessa kissed her on the forehead and hugged her longer than she meant to. Something in her gut wouldn't let go. But she chalked it up to nerves. She had an important client trial in St. Louis that afternoon and needed to be at the airport within the hour. "Don't forget," Emma called out as she grabbed her backpack, "you promised to help with my portfolio when you get back." "I didn't forget," Vanessa said, managing a smile. "You just wow your art teacher until then." The flight was smooth, the hotel staff efficient, and the legal prep had gone exactly as she'd planned. On paper, everything was perfect. But her mind never left Chicago. Vanessa kept her phone face down beside her trial binder, resisting the urge to check it every 2 minutes. Emma usually texted silly updates during the day, memes, song links, random photos of her lunch. But by noon, nothing. By 1 p.m., Vanessa started to worry. At 1:18, her phone rang. "Emma." She answered immediately. "Hey, sweetheart." But the voice on the other end wasn't Emma's usual soft-spoken confidence. It was panicked, cracked. "Mom." Vanessa's heart stopped. Grandma, she got really mad. I told her I didn't know anything about the money, but she started yelling and pulled my hair and then, She slapped me. I hit the floor and I think my arm's bleeding. It hurts. Mom, I'm scared. Silence. Just for a moment. Just long enough for Vanessa's world to tilt. I'm still in the living room, Emma continued, breath hitching. She's in the kitchen now. Max ran upstairs. He didn't even say anything. He just left. Vanessa felt frozen and burning at once. You stay right where you are, she said, voice calm and sharp like a razor. Don't move. Don't speak to her. I'm calling the police right now. They're coming to get you. Do you understand me? Yes, Emma whispered. Please hurry. Vanessa ended the call, her hand shaking so hard she almost dropped the phone. She dialed 911 and gave them Diane's address. My 15-year-old daughter has been assaulted. Her grandmother pulled her hair, slapped her, she fell and hit her arm. She's alone with the woman now. Please, send someone immediately. The dispatcher assured her units were en route. She didn't wait another second before calling her assistant. Brooke, she said through gritted teeth, get me the earliest flight back to Chicago. I don't care what it costs. I'm on it, Brooke said instantly. Also, Vanessa added, her voice hardening, start the legal files. I want emergency custody filings, restraining orders, everything. And lock all accounts connected to my mother and brother. Effective immediately. Understood. Vanessa called Emma back once she was certain police were on the way. They're coming, she told her. Paramedics too. You're going to be okay. I'm coming home. Emma sobbed softly. She said you were selfish. That it was your fault. That she had to teach me a lesson. A chill ran down Vanessa's spine. This wasn't a tantrum. This was retribution. Diane hadn't just lashed out. She'd weaponized Vanessa's daughter as a pawn in her guilt game. Because Vanessa said no, Diane had decided to make her pay in the cruelest way possible. Officer Alvarez called Vanessa 40 minutes later. Ms. Tran? Your daughter is safe. We've transported her to Mercy General. Minor head trauma, a bruised cheek, and a sprained elbow. Emotionally. She's shaken. Vanessa closed her eyes. And my mother? She's been arrested for assault on a minor. Your brother and his son were present but didn't intervene. I'll be there by midnight. The plane ride home was excruciating. She watched the clock the whole way, teeth clenched, hands twisting in her lap. By the time she landed, her driver was waiting. She ignored her luggage. Brooke had already arranged to have it delivered later. Every red light felt like a betrayal. When she arrived at the hospital, Officer Alvarez met her at the entrance. She's in room 212. We've posted a nurse outside until you arrived. Vanessa nodded and walked quickly down the hallway. She paused only once, at the door. Then she opened it. Emma sat on the hospital bed, her arm in a sling, a bandage on her cheek. Her eyes were heavy-lidded but alert. When she saw her mother, she didn't speak, she just launched herself into her arms. Vanessa held her like a fortress. I didn't even do anything, Emma cried into her neck. She just exploded. You did everything right, Vanessa whispered. You called me. That's all that matters. They sat like that, in a tangle of arms and tears, long after the doctor left. A few hours later, Vanessa stood in the hallway, arms crossed, staring out a window, still absorbing what had happened. Then, reluctantly, she did the one thing she'd been dreading. She called Alec. He answered on the second ring. How was the trial? I'm at the hospital, she said flatly. What happened? Vanessa told him everything. Every word. Every blow. Every cry. There was silence on the other end. Then, I'm flying home. First flight I can get. You don't have to. I do, Alec said. I wasn't there when she needed me. But I'll be there now. Vanessa wiped away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. Okay. The next morning, Emma was discharged. She didn't speak much on the drive home, but she didn't let go of Vanessa's hand, either. As they pulled into the driveway, Emma looked out the window and said, quietly, is she going to hurt someone else now? Vanessa looked her in the eyes. No, she said. Not ever again. And she meant it. By sunrise the next morning, Vanessa was already awake, standing in her home office in a gray robe with a cup of untouched coffee in her hand. The house was still, but not silent, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the occasional turn of a floorboard above her as Emma shifted in bed, still healing, still recovering. Vanessa hadn't slept. Her mind had been a storm all night, rolling images on repeat, Emma's trembling voice on the phone, the slap, the hospital room, the bandage on her cheek. She stared at the stack of documents spread across her desk, the medical report, photos of Emma's injuries, printouts of her 911 call transcript, and security footage from Diane's building hallway showing Emma stumbling, holding her elbow. All of it, evidence. Truth. But the most damning of all was the text Diane had sent that morning. Why did you call the police? Emma wasn't in real danger. I was just teaching her a lesson. You completely overreacted. Vanessa read it once. Then again. Her jaw clenched so tight it ached. A lesson. Her daughter had been physically assaulted, emotionally traumatized, and Diane had the audacity to treat it like a scolding? Vanessa's eyes burned, not with tears, but with razor-sharp clarity. She was done. This wasn't just a family feud anymore. This was war. At 7:15 a.m. sharp, Thomas Liu, her senior legal consultant and longtime friend, arrived with a leather briefcase and tired eyes. He didn't knock. He didn't ask questions. He just sat across from her and opened the file she handed over. The police report, the hospital documentation, the 911 transcript, the screenshots, she said. Everything is here. Thomas flipped through the pages quickly, brows furrowing. This isn't just an assault, he said. This is a pattern. Emotional abuse, manipulation, now physical violence. This is textbook child endangerment. I want to press full charges, Vanessa said. No plea deal. No reduced sentencing. She needs to be held accountable. Not as my mother. But as a criminal. He looked at her carefully. Are you sure you want to go all the way with this? Vanessa didn't blink. I want her prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And I want all financial ties legally severed. Past and future. No more support. No more access. No more contact. Thomas nodded. We'll begin with filing for a permanent restraining order today. Vanessa turned her gaze to the window. Make sure it includes Jason too. He stood there and watched her hurt Emma. He didn't lift a finger. Minutes later, Brooke called in on speaker. Her voice was crisp, professional, ready for battle. Julia, sorry, Jason, just attempted a transfer from the backup account. I denied it. Also, Diane called 12 times overnight. Left 6 voicemails. I don't want to hear a single word from either of them, Vanessa said, voice like ice. Just document everything. Every call, every message. We'll use it all in court. You got it, Brooke replied. The line clicked off. Vanessa exhaled. She had always been decisive in courtrooms, but this was different. This was personal. She wasn't just defending a client. She was defending her daughter. That afternoon, Vanessa picked Emma up from school. Her daughter walked slowly, arms still stiff in the sling, but when she saw Vanessa waiting by the car, her face lit up with a flicker of relief. They drove in silence for a while. Then Emma finally spoke. I had a good day, she said softly. My teachers didn't say much. Just that they were glad I was okay. Vanessa reached over and gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Dr. Patel wants to continue our weekly sessions, she added. Emma nodded. I want that too. Vanessa smiled. I think it's a great idea. That night, as they sat on the couch eating takeout noodles, Emma glanced up and asked quietly, Did you really cut them off? Grandma? Uncle Jason? Vanessa met her gaze without flinching. Yes. Completely. No more money. No more calls. No more control. Emma leaned back on the couch, exhaling like a balloon deflating. Then, for the first time since the incident, she smiled. A small, genuine smile. "I finally feel safe," she whispered. Vanessa felt her own heart crack open at those words. For so long, she had bent over backwards trying to keep the family together, convinced that obligation was the price of love. But love didn't hit. Love didn't guilt. Love didn't treat boundaries as betrayal. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a moral reckoning. 2 days later, Alec arrived at O'Hare Airport. Vanessa and Emma waited at the arrivals gate, her arm still in a sling, her dad's favorite hoodie wrapped around her shoulders. When Alec appeared, Emma ran to him like the weight of the world had finally lifted. He caught her in his arms and held her tight, burying his face in her hair. Vanessa watched, tears pricking her eyes. Alec looked up at her, mouthing, "I'm so sorry." She shook her head. "You're here now." The house began to breathe again. Mornings became filled with music again, Emma humming softly while brushing her hair. Alec flipping pancakes and cracking cheesy dad jokes. Vanessa even started reading for fun again, something she hadn't done in years. Then came the night Emma walked into Vanessa's office, her cheeks pink with excitement and a wrinkled sheet of paper in her hand. "Mom. Guess what?" She beamed. She held up the paper, a letter from her school. Her watercolor painting had been selected for the city-wide art exhibit. She handed over her phone, showing Vanessa the painting. It was a lighthouse. A tall, proud tower perched on jagged rocks, surrounded by stormy waves and dark skies. But at the top, shining through it all, was a glowing beam of light, clear, unmoving, defiant. "It's you," Emma said softly. "You're the lighthouse." Vanessa stared at it. Speechless. Emma wrapped her arms around her mother. "You always kept the light on, even when everything else was falling apart." The next morning, Vanessa received a plain white envelope in the mail. No return address. But she recognized the handwriting instantly. Diane. She opened it with cautious fingers. "I won't ask for forgiveness. I just hope you and Emma are doing okay." No apology. No remorse. Just a sentence. A whisper of someone who had finally realized what they'd lost. Vanessa walked to the shredder, fed the letter through, and watched it vanish. Forgiveness? Maybe one day. But trust? That bridge had collapsed, and she wasn't rebuilding it. That night, the Tran home was filled with laughter. Emma singing softly while washing dishes. Alex setting the table. Vanessa, for the first time in months, leaning back on the couch and letting peace settle into her bones. They didn't talk about Diana anymore. Not because it hurt. But because it didn't matter. The courtroom smelled faintly of floor polish and old wood. Vanessa stood tall, dressed in a navy suit that matched her resolve. On one side of the room sat Diane, expression unreadable in a pale gray sweater, hands folded neatly in her lap. Jason sat behind her, arms crossed, avoiding Vanessa's gaze. They hadn't spoken since the arrest. And they never would again, not by Vanessa's choice. The judge, a middle-aged woman with clear eyes and a calm tone, reviewed the files silently. A stack of evidence sat before her, photographs of Emma's injuries, the hospital intake form, security footage, the 911 transcript, and the printed message from Diane's own hand. She wasn't in danger. It was just a lesson. Vanessa's attorney, Thomas, rose and spoke with precision. "Your Honor, this is not a misunderstanding between family members. This is a calculated act of physical and emotional abuse. A 15-year-old child was assaulted by the person entrusted to protect her, and then gaslit into believing it was deserved." Diane's lawyer, a court-appointed one, tried to downplay the incident. "It was a moment of poor judgment, Your Honor. Not habitual abuse." Vanessa stood when called. Her voice didn't shake. "She didn't just hit my daughter. She punished her to make a point, to get to me. That's not discipline. That's violence used as leverage." The judge nodded slowly, then addressed the courtroom. "This court finds the defendant guilty of assaulting a minor and child endangerment. Ms. Diane Tran is hereby sentenced to 4 years in state prison, no possibility of early release." A permanent no-contact order will be granted, effective immediately. Vanessa didn't react. No sigh of relief. No smile. She simply turned and walked out, Alec beside her. Justice had been served. But the real victory was waiting at home. When they returned that afternoon, Emma was in the living room, paintbrush in hand, working on a new piece. She looked up, eyes questioning. "It's done," Vanessa said. Emma nodded, setting the brush down. They didn't need words. Just the quiet knowledge that they were safe now. That the storm had passed. The woman who had once ruled over Vanessa's life with guilt and control was now just another case number. But Vanessa? She was free. And this time, she had chosen her daughter over silence. Peace over obligation. And for once, herself over fear. The days that followed the court's ruling unfolded like a slow exhale, long overdue and deeply necessary. Gone were the anxious mornings. No more tense phone calls. No financial requests disguised as guilt. Vanessa's home, once saturated with quiet dread, began to take on a new sound. Not silence. Not stillness. But peace. Real peace. The kind that hummed through the kitchen as Alec flipped pancakes on Sunday mornings, humming along to an old jazz record. The kind that lingered as Emma sang quietly while brushing her hair, her voice gaining strength with every note. The kind that wrapped around Vanessa at night when she sipped tea on the balcony, watching the city lights instead of spreadsheets, breathing in moments instead of bracing for them. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. Emma still flinched sometimes when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Vanessa still paused before opening emails, her mind conditioned by years of tension. But the weight, the constant burden of holding everyone else up, was gone. And in its place was something new. Freedom. Emma returned to school full-time within a few weeks. Her teachers, aware of the situation but instructed by Vanessa to maintain Emma's dignity, treated her with compassion and quiet support. Her counselor, Dr. Patel, reported slow but steady progress. Emma was showing signs not just of coping, but of healing. "She doesn't just talk about what happened," Dr. Patel said during a phone call. "She's learning to redefine safety. On her terms." Vanessa felt her throat tighten with gratitude. Thank you. The nights they used to dread, the ones that used to echo with uncertainty, now belonged to movie marathons and late-night painting sessions. Alec and Emma had grown closer too. Despite the distance his job had created over the past year, he was present now, in every sense of the word. He'd accepted a permanent contract in Chicago and was home before 6 p.m. every evening. They cooked together, folded laundry with music blasting in the background, and laughed more than they had in years. One Wednesday afternoon, Emma burst into Vanessa's office like a gust of spring air, her cheeks flushed and hands gripping a familiar crumpled envelope. "Mom," she exclaimed. "My painting, it got selected. For the City Gallery." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Seriously?" Emma nodded so fast her ponytail bounced. "They're going to hang it in the student exhibition at the Cultural Center. It's happening in 2 weeks." Vanessa smiled, pushing her laptop aside. "Show me." Emma pulled up the photo on her phone. It was her latest piece, an evolution of the lighthouse she had painted after the assault. This one was grander, sharper in detail. The storm still raged around it, but the light beam now reached farther across the sea. In the background, there was a small boat, just visible, sailing through the waves toward the shore. "You added a boat," Vanessa noted. Emma smiled. "Yeah. That's me. Coming home." Vanessa blinked, swallowing down the rush of emotion. "It's beautiful." Emma looked at her seriously. "It's us. We made it through the storm." The next day, a white envelope appeared in their mailbox. No return address, but Vanessa recognized the handwriting before she even touched it. "Diane." She stared at it for a long time before opening it. "I won't ask for forgiveness. I just hope you and Emma are doing okay." That was it. No apology. No acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just a line dripping with the kind of cowardice Vanessa had come to expect. She walked to the shredder, slipped the letter in, and listened as it was eaten strip by strip. Forgiveness? Maybe one day. But not today. Today was for living. They didn't talk about Diane anymore, not because the pain lingered, but because she no longer mattered. Vanessa had closed that chapter. Permanently. Jason, too, had stopped trying to contact them. Brooke monitored all communication channels. Any attempts to reach out, emails, calls, even third-party messages, were documented and ignored. Vanessa had made it clear in court, her family was no longer defined by blood, but by love, respect, and safety. And those who violated that? They had no place in her life. Weeks passed, and the house bloomed with routine and warmth. Alec and Emma planted herbs on the balcony. Vanessa began journaling again, something she hadn't done since law school. Emma started tutoring younger art students after class and even began designing her own website to showcase her work. One evening, while Vanessa was cooking dinner, Emma leaned against the counter and asked, "Do you think we'll ever have to see them again?" Vanessa didn't have to ask who they were. "No," she said, stirring the pot. "Not if I can help it." Emma nodded. "Good. Because I like this version of us." Vanessa smiled. "Me too." The night of the gallery exhibition arrived with fanfare. Emma wore a deep blue dress and silver flats. Alec wore a tie for the first time in months. Vanessa dressed in a simple black jumpsuit, letting Emma's artwork be the real showstopper. The gallery buzzed with chatter and soft jazz. Emma's painting was displayed near the entrance, its colors illuminated under soft lights. Guests stopped to admire it, murmuring about its depth, its story, its soul. Vanessa stood back, watching as her daughter, once a quiet, uncertain girl, now stood confidently beside her work, answering questions, smiling, glowing. "She's incredible," Alec whispered. Vanessa nodded. "She always was. She just needed room to shine." Later that night, back home, Vanessa tucked Emma in and kissed her forehead. As she turned off the lights, Emma whispered, "Thanks for never giving up." Vanessa paused, her silhouette outlined by the hallway glow. "I never will," she said. "That's a promise." Months would pass. Years even. But they would remember this as the moment everything changed, not the moment it all fell apart, but the moment they took their lives back. No longer bound by fear. No longer chained to family expectations that hurt more than they healed. Vanessa had chosen her daughter. She had chosen peace. And peace, as she now knew, wasn't quiet or easy. It was earned. Every bruise survived. Every boundary drawn. Every no spoken aloud in the face of guilt. Every shred of evidence compiled with shaking hands. Every night spent holding Emma close while the world outside tried to pull them apart. That was the cost. But this was the reward. A home that was safe. A child who could sleep. A woman who finally knew her worth. And a life, hers, completely and unapologetically hers.